Hey everyone, and welcome back to Retro Legends. In the world of 90s beat-em-ups, few titles left a mark as big as Streets of Rage 2. Released in 1992 for the Sega Mega Drive, it's considered by many to be the ultimate masterpiece of the genre. A game that combined detailed graphics, deep gameplay, and a soundtrack that remains legendary even today. But behind this success lies a story of technical challenges, international collaborations, and a passion for street action. Let's begin. After the success of the first Streets of Rage in 1991, Sega knew they had something special. A beat-em-up that could compete with the arcade giants, but designed for the home console experience. Driven by the enthusiasm of the fans and the growing competition with Nintendo, the company was determined to create a sequel that was bigger, smoother, and more spectacular in every way. The goal wasn't just to surpass its predecessor, but also to beat Capcom's acclaimed Final Fight on its own turf, which until then was considered the absolute benchmark of the genre. To make this happen, Sega handed the project to their internal department, AM7. They were one of Sega's most talented teams, and they brought in key members from other successful teams, including those who worked on Shinobi and Golden Axe. These were two series that already knew how to combine action and style. However, the real creative glue of the project remained Yuzo Koshiro, the brilliant composer who had already defined the sound identity of the first game. For Streets of Rage 2, Koshiro didn't just replicate the success, he reinvented it. Thanks to his own music programming language and a musical sensibility inspired by Japanese and European club culture, he transformed the game into a total audio-visual experience, taking the soundtrack to levels that no other game at the time had dared to reach. The development wasn't just a technical challenge, but a statement of intent. Sega wanted Streets of Rage 2 to be not just a sequel, but an icon. Developing Streets of Rage 2 was a big and careful job. The team really wanted to make the best beat-em-up game for home consoles. They didn't just want to make a sequel, they wanted to make the first game way better. They changed everything. They made the fighting more skillful, responsive, and satisfying. They added combos, throws, special attacks, and counters. This gave each character a unique way to fight. It was a big jump from the first game. Now, you needed skill to play well, but if you were good, you felt really in control. The team used all the power of the Sega Mega Drive. They made a new graphics engine. It could handle much bigger characters, twice as big as the first game. The animations were smooth and detailed. The backgrounds had cool stuff like moving trains and flashing neon lights. Sometimes the people watching would react to what you did in the game. Each level felt like a little show. They also put more enemies on the screen at once. They did this by using the Mega Drive's memory better. This made the fights more exciting and challenging. The game still ran smoothly, which was amazing back then. They also made sure the characters were balanced. Each of the four characters, Axel, Blaze, Skate, and the new guy Max, had their own moves. This let people play how they wanted. Max was slow but hit hard. Skate was fast, good for players who like speed. Axel was a good all-arounder. Blaze used skill and speed. This made people want to play the game again and again. They wanted to try all the characters. The team worked really hard for months. They cared about every little thing. This made Streets of Rage 2 more than just a good sequel. It became one of the best beat-em-up games ever. It's still amazing today when you think about the technology back then. Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding were back. You know them from the first game. But Streets of Rage 2 introduced two new heroes, Max Thunder, a former wrestler super strong with powerful attacks, and Eddie Skate Hunter, Adam's younger brother. He uses rollerblades and his speed to fight in a totally new way. These four characters weren't just different looks. Each one had a unique fighting style. You could be a strong tank, a fast fighter, an all-rounder, or a combo master. This made the game super replayable because how you played changed depending on who you picked. The gameplay was way better than the first game. Besides regular attacks, each character had special moves, grapples, counters, and combos. You had to have good timing and know the controls. You could chain together combos, launch enemies in the air, juggle them, or even team up with a friend for cool combo attacks. The fighting felt more technical and rewarding. Compared to this, the first game felt kind of old. Progressing through the stages was like taking a journey through the dark heart of a city swallowed by decay, a city ruled by the iron fist of the evil Mr. X. Each level was a small masterpiece of level design and atmosphere, from dingy alleys lit by flickering streetlights, to nightclubs pulsating with neon lights and pounding synth music, from shadowy train stations, to creepy theme parks with creepy clowns and decaying rides. There was no need for cutscenes or dialogue to tell the story of urban decay. You just had to look at the backgrounds, listen to the music, and feel the rhythm of the streets. It was a city that was alive but rotten to its core. And it all culminated with memorable bosses, each with their own distinct attack patterns, often inspired by classic arcade game archetypes, but reinterpreted with a mature and recognizable style. These fights required skill, strategy, and adaptation, breaking up the monotony and offering constantly changing challenges. In short, Streets of Rage 2 wasn't just a game to be played, but an experience to be lived. An immersive experience where gameplay, aesthetics, and sound blended into a perfectly orchestrated symphony. The original Japanese title for Streets of Rage 2 was Bare Knuckle 2, a far more direct and raw name compared to the Western version. Bare knuckle, meaning just that, bare fist fighting, immediately brought to mind the kind of brutal hand-to-hand combat that would define the entire gaming experience. The title change for the Western market was likely driven by marketing strategies, aiming for a name that was more evocative and easily recognizable in English-speaking countries. But Bare Knuckle 2 remains a cult name among Japanese fans and fans of the series to this day. One of the biggest changes from the first game was that Adam, one of the original three main characters, was gone. The story explained that he had been kidnapped by Mr. X, and rescuing him became the reason why the other characters were fighting. But there were also practical reasons for this change, like balancing the characters and dealing with memory limits on the game cartridges. Adding two new characters, Max and Skate, brought in completely different fighting styles, which made the gameplay more interesting. This gave players more choices without making the game too big for the technology at the time. Streets of Rage 2 came at a crucial time for Sega. The console war with Super Nintendo was in full swing, and every new game was a strategic weapon to grab the public's attention. In this scenario, Streets of Rage 2 was more than just a sequel. It became one of the Mega Drive's flagship games, a killer app capable of showcasing the console's technical and artistic power. It was a staple for many gamers of that era, and helped keep the Sega platform competitive. It's interesting, even the game covers tell a story. The American version was criticized a lot for its questionable graphics. The characters looked strange, and the style seemed more like a beginner made it, not a professional. On the other hand, the Japanese cover had a dynamic, detailed illustration. It really fit the feeling of the game, like a window into the city chaos waiting for the player. Even today, a lot of collectors prefer the Japanese artwork because it's so stylish and really shows what the game is about. It's surprising, but even though Streets of Rage 2 had everything it needed to be a huge hit in arcades, it never actually got an official arcade release. This was an unusual choice back then, but it fit perfectly with Sega's goal. They wanted to make the home gaming experience the absolute best. Right from the start, the game was designed to be a console exclusive, which was a pretty rare thing in the early 90s. Back then, most games started out in arcades, and then got made for home consoles. So, Streets of Rage 2 was kind of a pioneer. It brought that arcade-style action right into your living room, without holding anything back. Yuzo Koshiro, the composer of the first Streets of Rage, outdid himself in the second game. He created music that is still considered a milestone in video game history. To compose the music for Streets of Rage 2, Koshiro didn't use traditional software. Instead, he created his own music programming language called Music Love. It was based on a language called Music Macro Language, and inspired by NEC PC 8801 systems. This approach allowed him to have incredible control over the Mega Drive's Yamaha YM 2612 sound chip, pushing it far beyond its limits. The result was a sound never heard before on a 16-bit console. It was electronic, pulsating, layered, sometimes aggressive, and incredibly modern for its time. Streets of Rage 2's soundtrack was a revolution, not just in video games but in music itself. While most games at the time used simple chiptune melodies or orchestrations, Koshiro drew inspiration directly from the early 90s club culture. He used genres like house, techno, breakbeat, electro, and even early jungle music. These sounds were still confined to underground dance floors in Europe and Japan at the time. His vision was to bring club music into the living rooms of Mega Drive owners, and he succeeded with surgical precision. In an interview, Koshiro said he was inspired by DJs and producers like Joey Beltram and Kraftwerk. He had a passion for the rave scene, which was just emerging at the time. Tracks like Go Straight, which plays on the first level, became instantly recognizable thanks to their driving rhythm and punchy bass line. Dreamer and Expander showcased the more experimental side of the soundtrack, with hypnotic melodies, complex loops, and harmonic variations rarely heard in video games. Each track seems written to blend perfectly with the on-screen action, fueling the game's rhythm and creating that dark, urban, and adrenaline-pumping atmosphere that made Streets of Rage 2 so unique. The soundtrack not only stood the test of time, but was also years ahead of its contemporaries. Many of the sounds and rhythmic structures Koshiro used would later become popular in the late 90s. It's no coincidence that his compositions continue to be remixed, sampled, and celebrated by musicians, DJs, and fans of the retro gaming scene. Even today, Streets of Rage 2 is often cited as a perfect example of how a soundtrack can elevate a video game to a work of art. Even today, Streets of Rage 2 is considered by many to be the best beat-em-up game ever made. It's featured on tons of top video game lists and has inspired remakes, fan games, and mods. You can even see its influence in Streets of Rage 4, which came out in 2020. It borrows a lot from the second game, both in terms of graphics and music. Retro game fans still study how it works, and its balance of being easy to pick up but hard to master is still unmatched. Streets of Rage 2 isn't just a video game, it's a piece of gaming history from the 90s, a game that redefined what a side-scrolling beat-em-up could be. It's proof that with passion and vision, you can create a timeless classic. And today, playing it again takes us back to a time when all you needed was a controller and a street full of trouble to feel invincible. And that concludes our trip down memory lane. How many of these fun facts did you already know? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to join us on more retro gaming adventures. Thanks for watching Retro Legends, and see you in the next video. Stay retro, stay legends.